Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fifth Civitas podcast from the Game Design series. In this podcast, we will cover as many topics around logistics and marketplace as possible at the moment. And as always, today, David Grusha, Mark Gilbert, and David Delsray are with me here to provide us with the answers. So thank you guys for being here with me, and glad to do another podcast with you.
Yeah, as always, we're always really happy to have these opportunities to share information about this game that we're spending so much time thinking about with our community. So let's get to it.
Great. Let's do this then. So
Mm.
let's start with the, let's say, most obvious question in this podcast. How is logistic defined in Civitas? And why do we need it even?
So, logistics in simple terms is the moving of something from one place to another. And there, as you can imagine, within Civitas, there's going to be a lot of different things. And what we don't want is a situation where players, there is one gigantic economy that a few players can easily manipulate. So let me give you some examples. If you were to look at an MMO like World of Warcraft, you have a single auction house where everyone can access. Now, the issue with that is very easy for certain things to be manipulated, by small parties, by and increasing prices. Whereas if you were to look at something like EVE Online, you have a much more distributed economy. And by having a distributed economy, you give opportunities to far more people to be able to create their own wealth in a space. So logistics forces us players to deal locally with the players around them, with the resources around them, rather than at an absolute global scale. And it creates far more opportunities for players to essentially earn within the game, far more opportunities.
Great. So it's a lot of moving parts, right?
Yes, lots of parts.
That's what the whole thing's about, right? Is about moving parts.
Yes,
That's a
quite
lot
literally.
of moving parts. Okay. So great. So David, you want to comment on that? Like, why do we need even logistics in any game, or let's say Civitas in specific?
Oh, I mean, this is something that I've had a lot of conversations with Mark about because, uh, I've got an action game background, right? The logistics stuff. I was just like, oh, Mark, it sounds so boring, you know, but but realistically, Mark hit it right on the money, and I'm thoroughly convinced. It's like there needs to be, and there are a lot of people that really enjoy this aspect of the game, that enjoy the kind of just the logical placement and movement and transportation of things and how we orchestrate it and how we optimize it. But it really does have a lot to do with by creating this kind of gameplay around the movement and the way that you're transporting goods and moving them across not only your own land tile, but between different land tiles or even across the world. It allows us to compartmentalize the economy a little bit. Well, not a little bit. It allows us to compartmentalize the economy entirely, and it does create opportunities for wealth centers. It kind of prevents us from having a single economy where one player or one small group of players is really able to corner the entire market and really kind of corrupt the integrity of the economy. But there is a lot of, I guess, pleasure that some people really enjoy, like optimizing how efficiently things can be moved from one place to another. And then there's another layer on top of that where there is value that can be kind of eked out of a truly optimized system. So logistics underpins all of these things and informs all of these decisions that the player will make. And if you really want to dig into it, you can really create a system that is heavily optimized. If you're able to create and then transport goods, it's going to allow you to build wealth. And so it touches on a lot of gameplay systems. And while might not necessarily be the focal point for all of the players in our community, some people are really going to dig into it, and some people are really going to optimize it, and they're going to be able to reap the rewards of that optimization.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, when we were just explaining it, I was thinking about, for example, a car. I mean, we might see a car as it is physically, but underneath the hood, underneath the bonnet, really, there is a lot of moving parts where maybe that could just be logistics, right? Great.
Uh, yeah. I mean, I'm not entirely on board with that analogy, Arash, but yeah, I think it does hit on some of the points, right? It's like, the efficiency with which everything under the bonnet is kind of constructed and architected is going to result in a higher level of performance from your vehicle overall. So yeah, I would say that's a pretty good analogy.
Yeah, I meant that actually, but you actually explained it better than I did.
Yeah. Now,
Cool.
I'm sure there's some of you listening here that go, "Oh my God, I hate this. What do you mean I have to fiddle around with all my stuff? What do you mean I have to move everything around?" And you're just going,
That's
"Dude,
me.
you
I'm
just
sorry.
killed this game for me." Don't worry, we've got you. So,
Yeah.
while there are a lot of parts that move around, we have plans for a huge suite of automation, i.e., if you don't want to deal with this, you just simply want to go, I want to build my stuff and I want to make it big, build my buildings up and I will level up and I want to focus on growing my land. I don't want to know exactly where my wooden houses are and all these storage things. I just want to dump this thing down. Don't worry. Most of the core systems are completely automated in that if you set up a building and you tell it to just work, it will go and grab the materials automatically. If you have them, it will just work. If you tell it to build an item, it will grab the materials and just work for you. Now, the depth of logistics is a completely optional thing. You can dig into this as much as you want, or as little as you want to. You can customize a whole bunch of levers within the system to make things work the way you want to. But if you don't care about it, generally just want to leave that to someone else, don't worry, we've got you. You can still play the whole game without having to worry about this.
Well, that's pretty
And
cool.
we hope it. Yeah, our aim is essentially keep things concise, keep things direct, keep things easy to understand. And if you don't want to dig into it, don't have to.
That's great.
It shouldn't get in the way.
Right. Well, I think it'll also be a good part of our game progression, right? We're going to expose people to the way that, the inner workings of these things. We're going to expose players to it, definitely. But once you get a basic understanding of how it works, then we will provide, as you kind of build and level up, those, like Mark said, those opportunities for automation. So you're just not constantly fiddling with the little fiddly bits and focusing maybe on the bigger picture.
Great. Thank you for explaining that in detail. So I believe like logistics and roads have something in common. So I wanted to ask you, do all buildings in the game or on a land need to be connected to one another using roads? Or do they just have to be connected to one specific building?
So roads are essentially what create a network. If a building is connected to another building, they form one network. If every single building on your land is joined together by roads, they all combine into one network. Now, why I mentioned networks is because networks can span multiple land tiles as long as they are connected to each other. So if you have 2 or even 3 tiles next to each other and you connect them all with roads, and there's at least one uninterrupted road between everything, then it will all just function as one giant network. You will have one inventory for everything. All of your buildings will pull from that central inventory. However, if for whatever reason you have 2 sets of roads that are not connected to each other, this could be on different tiles. This could even be within the same tile. And I'll touch on what could cause that in a minute. But if you have 2 separate sets, they function as different networks, which means they have different inventories and they cannot pull from each other. Now, you can move goods between them, but you need a specialist building to do so, which is known as a shipping warehouse. Now, the shipping warehouse allows you to move goods from any network to any other network. Now, the second network you're moving to could be someone else's. It could be a marketplace. It could be a city. It could be your own land. Again, it doesn't matter what it is. It just moves from one network to another. They're like essentially a bridge. Now,
Okay.
I touched on earlier when I said things could become unconnected. Now, you might have your lands connected with roads, but those roads might get damaged by the blight if you're not careful about it, which could cause your networks to become disconnected. It could be the fact you just deleted a road and forgot to put it back again. There are a number of things that could cause it, so you need to kind of keep your eye on what's going on. But in general, the best thing for you to do is to just connect everything into one big network and connect it back to your town hall, and then you're golden. From that point, everything just works.
Okay, great. So still, you could really connect, for example, two different unrelated buildings together, and then all of them need to be connected to the town hall, right? Like the main building there.
Yeah, that's the easiest way for it to do, because you need to be able to get workers to your buildings, and workers move along roads. So if you don't have a building connected back to your town hall, your workers can't get there in the first place. However, if they are there, but then it comes disconnected, well, they have been there at some point, they'll still keep working, but you're going to have to quickly sort the problems out.
Okay, so roads are pretty important.
Yeah, you could even upgrade them as well, though, to make things even more efficient.
Oh, roads can be upgraded?
Yes, you can have several levels of them, and this will be one of the major components of kind of your long-term growth of your land, is by connecting roads. Now, I mentioned before, it's not just your lands. If you and your neighbors are trading with each other regularly in this, and again, this is a major reason why we want logistics, because we want to create these small local economies. So let's say you and your 3, 4, 10 mates are all created a kind of small town that you've got going, a local economy. If you guys all connect your lands together with roads, then you can just trade along those roads in a really nice, efficient way, because everything moves faster on roads. And if you all upgrade your roads, all of the goods will move faster between your relative lands as well, which just makes it better for everyone. There's less costs to it, because you actually have to feed your workers when you're sending them long distance. So if you are traveling nice and quick, there's less cost to you. And also there's less risk, because if things are moving quickly, there's less chance of them being caught out by the blight or other events.
You got to think of it as like the difference between a country road, like some nice paved tarmac, versus like a freeway, right? If you're transporting goods, do you want it to move through, winding little dirt country roads? Do you want like a nice paved road? You want like a multi-lane freeway that's moving? Obviously it's going to impact that. So upgrading those things, again, it's going to be about optimization, which always kind of feeds back into the player's ability to build and distribute wealth.
Okay, that totally makes sense. But my question is, like, what if like a player has two lands that are far apart from each other? Like, how can they connect them? Do they have to just like plant the road through a neighbor's land tile, or do they have to ask them to leave out an end of the road so you can connect it to the other end of the road? How can you do that?
Uh-oh, Mark, I think we've
Oh.
lost you.
Sorry,
Are you
yeah.
muted?
You're muted.
So sorry about that. So I mentioned earlier something called a shipping warehouse that allows you to move stuff from one place to another, and that is what you use to connect your lands. Now, a shipping warehouse will trace the route between where you're starting and where you're going to go, and it will pick the most efficient route as a default. Now, you can manually change that. For example, the most efficient route might be going through an area that's quite dangerous right now that you don't want to, so you can manually change it. But initially, what it will do is it will pick the most efficient route. So if you and your friends all have roads, that shipping warehouse will just get goods from one of your lands to another, and it will get it there quickly, because you've all got roads and you're all maintaining them. If, however, you've got like just no man's land, or just unclaimed lands between you and your lands, the shipping warehouse will still get you, but it will have to go across country, at which point it will be significantly slower. Now, even the basic road versus like no roads, we're looking at the range of kind of half speed. So if the most simple road you've got is like 100% speed, going off road will be 50% sort of thing. So we're talking very, very slow to get across these lands, and that is deliberate, because we want you guys to build up your infrastructure. We want you guys to work together to build local economies with each other rather than you being kind of out on your own in the middle of nowhere, which you
Interesting.
can do, but it's going to come with a lot of risk and potential serious time and investment in logistics that you're going to have to make to be able to have that land out in the middle of nowhere.
Interesting. So that means if I have a land tile, then I will have to literally contact my neighbor and say, "Hey guys, let's just have proper roads, so we can actually go back and forth between our lands or different like spots that we need to move to."
Yep. And that's amazing though, because what that does is it fosters communities. It
Mhm.
gets you talking to your neighbors. It gets you cooperating and working with each other. So the shipping warehouse will send out convoys, and convoys are that's a little bit different to workers in that they always have a cart and a number of workers, but you can also guard convoys as well. So they have the advantage that they've got a lot more flexibility. You can put a lot more stuff in a convoy than you can to a general worker. General worker is basically whatever they can carry, whereas a convoy is a cart, so you can probably carry 50, 100 times what a general worker would be able to. And if you want to ship even more than that, it just adds more convoys to it. So more wagons to the convoy. And it can just keep growing and growing and growing as big as you need it to be. So if you do want to move large amounts of stuff, for example, what happens if you have two lands and you just want to move your town hall to another land? You can do that. Pack up all your stuff, load into a convoy, ship it across to the new one, make that your new town hall, and you're good to carry on.
That's pretty cool, to be honest. But since you mentioned like contacting the neighbor or other players, like is there gonna be a chat room in the game, or do we have to really contact each other through Discord?
I mean, communication is a huge thing. So we're going to need to have ways for you guys to talk with each other.
Okay, cool.
And this is going to be one of those things that we're going to address as we kind of grow things out. So we're going to look at what the need is and then adapt to that. We don't have any like clear plans of, oh yeah, we're going to have these massive chat rooms, we're going to have all this, we're going to have, no, it's, we know you guys need to communicate. We're going to find out what the best way is to facilitate that and then go from there.
Nice.
Yeah, it's definitely like Mark said, the communication is going to be so important. Your ability to communicate with your neighbors, communicate with people in your city, maybe even communicate with people in other cities. But it's not. We're still in the kind of core features here. I think we're going to be fleshing these out more, building these, and then identifying the needs and circumstances and on which people will need to be communicating, and then we'll create systems to provide that. Right now we're just using Discord, but that's not necessarily going to be the case in perpetuity.
That would be cool. I mean, make sure to leave room for gifts because we definitely need gifts in the chat rooms.
What kind of communication could you have in 2024
Yeah,
without gifts?
that gifts our language, right? I would love to start
The
using.
universal
Like,
language, of course.
I need products moved, like, and then I'll just send someone who's shouting at the neighbor in the format of a gift, right?
Fair
Okay,
and valid. Yes, let me make a note of that right now.
yeah. So we know that buildings need to be connected together. Need to be roads there. So do I can I assume that workers need these roads to actually move through them between buildings, right? Or they can still move around freely even if there are no roads.
So that will more fall on me. Basically, the workers themselves uh, are not entities on the land. We will see people walking around, but they are not your workers. They will be the same kind of. The workers will work as a resource that you put in one or the other building that you have. Does it need to use the roads? Not really. No, it will make it easier. It will make it faster to transfer a worker from one building to another, but they will not follow the road. They will just basically appear in the new building after a certain amount of time. So not really. You will not see your worker walking around to go from the bakery to the I don't know, the forge.
Okay, so that means the roads are clear then. but let's say a player wants to move a product from A to B, and look, there is road, or maybe there may not be road. So, does the player have to click on the destination, or everything is automatic? Like the moment the product is produced, then the worker automatically takes it from A and brings it to B.
So, no, it's not done on an individual item basis, because moving every single item all the time would require loads of workers. What we have is essentially inventories. Every building that either makes something or deals with something has its own local inventory. So your wood cutting camps, they're starting to cut down wood. They build up a couple of hundred wood. When it hits a threshold value, what that does is it triggers a flag that the building needs to have a worker come to pick something up. And again, this is automated. So a worker will then essentially head over to the building, grab a bunch of wood, and it will then drop it off at the nearest storage location or warehouse. Now, if that local warehouse is completely full, it will just move to the next one. If there are no spaces anywhere, then you will get notifications that you're out of storage space. But assuming that there are spaces, what will happen is a worker will come along, pick it up, and take it back and dump it in your warehouse, which means your camp will just continue to work and over. When I mentioned earlier, though, that you can optimize things, you can choose when that flag goes. So we would set it as, say, a default value of, say, maybe 70%. When the building is 70% full, a worker will come and start picking stuff up. However, you might want to change that for whatever reason. Maybe your building is a very, very long way away, and if you put it to 70%, then the workers just don't get there quick enough. So what you can do is you can lower it to, say, 30%. So as soon as it triggers 30%, a worker will start planning to head over to you to pick it up. Perhaps, though, maybe your lumber camp is right next to a storage place, in which case you can probably set the fill value to 90%. Again, it's completely up to you to what these values are, but again, you can set it. Now, if you want to manually do something, you can as well. So you can say, hey, I know this building is going to need a whole bunch of materials, so I'm going to tell it to manually deliver, but that is a completely optional process. If you just simply ordered the things, if you say you wanted to make a bunch of tools, for example, then the building will, well, I need wood, and then it will put in an order. A worker will walk around, go pick up the wood, move it over to the building so you can start making the tools. But what you can do is you can pre-plan that by manually moving the resources over if you want to.
Okay, that's a lot of details, to be honest. Right?
Mark's always good for a lot of details, man.
Yeah, that's a lot of details. Like, yeah, this is gonna be cool, to be honest, when the game is out. So you have to manage everything, even like the workers and taking stuff here and there to the storage.
As I mentioned, though, this is entirely optional. You
Yeah,
don't
but still
have
to
to
do
do it. You don't have to manually do that. You don't have to change with the kind of flags. You don't have to manually deliver the resources. If you don't want to, then don't. You can just plonk down a tools thing, tell it you want to start building tools, and then it will just work. As long as you've got the material to actually make the thing, then you just tell it to make it and it will make it for you.
I mean, that's exactly, in my opinion, the beauty of it, because it's optional. That means the details are gonna be there for you to either use it or don't. But the detail is there. That means it's gonna be implemented in the game.
Yeah, which is
Exactly.
cool. I think we've talked about that in previous podcasts, right? It's like an important component of this whole design for us is that we create a world and a game space where people can really explore the aspect of gameplay that they really naturally gravitate towards, whether that be combat or logistics or market. Like we want to provide that depth of experience for them to really delve into, and at the same time, if that's not what they want, if that's not what jives with them as a gamer, like, we provide tools to allow them to really focus in on things that they really like. So yeah, I think that's something that is consistent across all of our systems design approach.
That's pretty cool. So my next question is about distance, really. So, like, for example, let's say, what if a player needs to move a product from London to Tokyo? How long would that take? By the way, London and Tokyo are two of my favorite places, so that's
Hmm.
why I bring them up all the time. And they're so
Well,
far from each other, so like, how
you
long
gotta
will it
think.
take?
Well, I mean, we're look at the era that we're starting in, right? The Mark, what's going on?
Yeah.
It's pointing at something. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say it's. I figured you'd want to field this one because it came from your idea of portals.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Are we
Go,
talking
go.
about portals? Because I mean, initially, that was how I was thinking about it. Everything, transport everything via portal. There's like, we'd have a portal and we just ship stuff across, boom, and it'd be right there, and then you wouldn't have to deal with any of the transportation of goods over long distances, which does break like our kind of compartmentalized approach to the economy. But so if you want to transport it via traditional means, it's going to take a lot of time, right? And then it could have like several things that impact that as well. I mean, we could require shipping, but we're starting in the Neolithic, so it's how long would it take you to walk to Tokyo from London?
Oh yeah,
Like,
it's gonna take a long time.
yeah, but I mean, but I don't know. I'm not exactly sure because if we came to a concrete conclusion on this, I thought we approached like, well, we're gonna need shipping, and it's going to take extended periods of time. So if you really want to have like a worldwide network, you're gonna need to have lands all over the world, and then you're gonna be moving things across, which is going to take a really long time. I don't know, Mark. Do you want to speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah. So while obviously we want to have lots and lots of these kind of localized networks, from time to time you will just need to get something from much further afield, and this is where those kind of concept of portals came, whereby uh, there will be a method with which you can travel very long distances very quickly. However, it will be exceptionally expensive. We call them portals at the moment because it's again a nice term for it. But then, I mean, this is still very early. So, but we kind of wanted to share it with you because one of the immediate questions is, yeah, but what happens if my neighbor doesn't have the materials I need? Where do I get like a rare material, for example? So we know we need something for these long distances, and portals are kind of what we're running with. And then this would allow you to go, right, I need to go from here to, I want to go from London to Tokyo, for example. It's like, okay, cool. Well, there is a portal near me and a portal near there, and I can use those two to connect. But it's going to be very expensive. The distance, the cost will be, comparable to the distance, but it will be fast. So it's one of those things of, do I want to take more time? Do I want to, just get things from further afield? Do I want to pay slightly more now, or do I want to, fork out for this very, very long distance transport via portals?
So the portal expense is going to need to be, it's going to be significantly higher. Like Mark said, it'd be an instantaneous form of transportation. But if you want to increase your profit margins, like maybe a traditional shipping method is going to be the best way to keep your overhead low. But if you need it right now in order to hit like a specific need in the market in a specific region of the world, portals, might be the way to go. But like Mark said, it's going to be exorbitantly expensive.
Yep, unless
Yep.
the player is rich.
Yeah.
We,
Or
we
the
also,
opportunities for profit are significant, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's all about that balance.
we also thought the portals more to be for large shipments. So, for example, more for the city sending a bunch of stuff on the other side of the world to another city.
Mm.
They would have more facilities to, well, yeah, more money to spend into the shipment itself than the normal player who would need, I don't know, let's say 100 of wood, whereas a city would send 1,000 or 100,000 of the same material to another city and trade like this. So the portals would be also an opportunity to increase the volume of trade that goes around the world in terms of sheer volume of the goods that are traded.
That's pretty cool. But speaking of like goods and like distance, like will there ever be a need for a player to actually move a product from, let's say, London to Tokyo? Or I mean, is there going to be any product that is regionally based, like you can only find product X in Tokyo, in Japan?
Well,
we
that
we're
is
yeah.
decided. It is
Okay,
so.
yeah. I mean, I think there is. We got to deal with the complexity of the resource economy, and while it's I think there's a lot of interesting scenarios that we can create by having very specific regional products that are only available in one part of the world. At the same time, we don't want to create like a endless amount of variation in our resource system. Otherwise, it'll just be too complicated for people to build stuff. So we might lean into this a bit, like and have a few resources, just like one that is within this region, one that is within another region. But I don't expect there to be variations of all the wood products and all the all the grains, the flora, the fauna, any of these things, like to have all the regional variations that you're going to find like all over the world, because we're not trying to recreate like an
The
entire world
world.
biome here.
The
Yeah,
world.
yeah.
That makes
So
sense.
one scenario that would potentially require having someone from Tokyo send something to London would be if your favorite influencer is in Tokyo and you just want to buy their product.
That is
That
interesting.
would potentially open the road to having these very specialized, oh, I want this person who makes this stuff very well, send them to me.
Yeah, that's
That's
very
very
true.
cool. That is
Or
pretty cool.
perhaps I mentioned earlier you want to move lands, or maybe you are just absolutely sick of where you are and you really do just want to move halfway around the world. You can pack everything up, pass it through a portal, and start your new life somewhere else.
Yeah, that makes sense. Or buy land in every every region and just enjoy all of them at the same time.
I mean, that's an interesting kind of thought, Arash, right? Is that if you do have like lands scattered around the globe, you could single-handedly kind of create a network where you're moving things, even just through traditional means back and forth. It's a longer game, right? It's like you're really playing a long game there, but it could be very profitable. Obviously, a little bit more straightforward approach is going to be to have multiple lands that are right next to each other, so you can move things back and forth very quickly. But there could be some real advantage to being there being a landowner, like with in different hemispheres and different continents. It could be very advantageous and could be very profitable.
Well,
Who's
that's
to say
definitely so.
who's to say how the game will look in like 5 years from now?
Mm.
Gonna be very
Yeah.
interesting. Really looking forward to seeing it.
Well,
But
it's interesting because the impact of technology on logistics is tremendous, right? You think about just people moving wagon trains or horseback or by foot, versus cars and freeways and like air transportation. I mean, this is a system that is going to certainly evolve in both complexity and diversity as
gonna be
we
very nice.
progress through technological eras. Yeah.
Really looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, we all
Okay,
we all want to see what it looks like, in
we
the
will.
in the distant future, what Civitas looks like. I mean, it's something that we're all always thinking about, so it's pretty exciting.
Dematerialize a product and then materialize it in another part of the world.
Yeah, well,
That is
I mean, who's
still
to say?
moving.
Who's to say? Yeah.
Okay. So speaking of trade, since you mentioned it, David, like we
Mhm.
know that people can trade with each other. Like for example, I have something, you have something, then we can trade. But can
Yeah.
cities also trade, like with each other?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
David, you want to dig into this one a
Yeah,
little bit?
sure.
Yep.
Sure. Absolutely. The cities will, there is a whole depth of gameplay there at the city level that we want to explore. Having the city trade between themselves, having cities create particular trading relationships. So, for example, if I don't know, part of the Council of London and I have created very good diplomatic relationship with the city of Tokyo, I will make sure that when they send us some kind of rare exotic wood, um, the way that they send it to us and the way that they sell it in our place, they will receive less taxes, and they will not have to pay as much to us when they sell their goods in our place. On the opposite side, if once again I'm part of the London council and I don't like the people in Madrid, I have nothing against people in Madrid, but if there is distance between these two cities, maybe I will want just to raise the prices. And if you send us something, if you try to trade something in our local economy, you will pay a lot of money for it, and therefore we will create in this way deeper relationship between cities and functional and gameplay interest in taking care of the politics as well.
That is definitely, that falls under politics, of course, definitely. But does this fall under the responsibilities of the council?
Yes. The council will be the one negotiating between each other. We briefly discussed during the episode about the council that they will have certain decisions to make regarding the laws, regarding the taxes, so on. That's one of them. That's absolutely one of them. Creating the best relationship with other capitals or either other cities to make it best for their population.
Nice. When you said taxes, I was thinking about, are we going to have taxpayers and to say tax collectors too? Like tax collecting buildings, IRS and stuff.
Yeah, there will be taxes and there will be tax collection. But once again, everything will be automated. The player will not have to send and count and everything. We will be more efficient than IRS because you will not have to guess.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be cool. Okay. Thanks, David. Thanks for answering it. Very detailed. My next question is about like safety and dangers of moving through lands and roads. So I take it it's not going to be safe moving products outside the city. So are there going to be any dangers when players moving convoys, like sending convoys to different cities outside the main city?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
No, it's-
Simple
so-
answer. Yeah, of course.
inside your land, you have the blight to deal with, and it's straightforward. You can see where it's encroaching. You can deal with it. You've got lights. When you are sending out convoys, you're going outside of your land. So you're going through other people's lands. You are going across lands that nobody owns, and there is an inherent danger to this. So, for example, if you are sending a convoy from your land all the way to a city and it goes through nothing but owned lands of people that you know, or the city lands, the chances are is it's going to be very, very safe. The chance of you getting attacked by is very, very low because you're going through owned lands along roads, along lit space. Now, it's not zero risk. There is always risk in a convoy, but in this case, the risk would come from things like bandits. This would be like an event that would happen. There is a chance of being attacked. However, if you're out in the kind of wildlands and you are sending a convoy back to maybe your mainland, that's quite a long way away, and you're going through, say, 10, 15 tiles that nobody owns, the risk will be much, much higher. And when you're sending a convoy, you will therefore need to guard it. Guarding it would then have troops, and you would be able to kind of see the power of those troops, but the troops will need food as well. So that means you've got a lot of extra cost to it because you've got to keep them fed. Now, the aim of the logistics system, as I mentioned before, is to make things really straightforward. So when you are sending a convoy, it will tell you an example of what the risk is. It won't tell you, say, hey, you are going to be attacked or you're not going to be attacked. It will give you an indication of like, this is low risk, but this is very high risk. So it will give you an indication of what sort of things you're going to need to do to protect it. And if you do decide to send out convoy, either with no guards or with low small, then again, it will aim to go, are you sure you want to do this? Because again, we want to make sure the player avoids things when they can, but risk is a part of the game that, again, you're going to need to factor in to your logistics decisions.
Okay, that's cool. So that means I will have to send like guards with my convoy to protect them. But what if I don't have any guards to send with my convoy? Like, can I ask my neighbor to do it for me?
Well, I mean, I believe we touched on this before, that you'd be
Yeah.
able to have contracts between you and other people. So yes, you can set a contract up with your neighbor saying, "Hey, I want you to guard this convoy. I want you to provide this many troops, and it's going from here to there and back again," for example. That can be a contract.
That's pretty cool. I just wanted to ask the same question because like some people might be new to this podcast and this is the first time they're listening to it. So that means it is possible to create contracts between neighbors and definitely use services, different services, even if you don't have it right now.
Yep. And
Okay.
one extension to contracts, just again to reiterate, is automatic contracts, where if you and your neighbors are trading regularly, you'd be able to set up a contract to just keep delivering a certain amount of something. You could say, okay, deliver me 1,000 wood anytime I drop below 500, and you could set that up with your neighbor for it to go indefinitely, and that neighbor will just keep delivering you 1,000 wood until you cancel that contract. So again, this is another example of how we want the logistics system to be automated. So what would happen is every time that contract triggers, you would pay them an amount automatically. They would set up a convoy. The convoy would then move from their place to yours, and it would deliver the resources, and then it would head back to their location. And again, that can just be done automatically.
That is pretty cool. So that's a lot of contracts that will be there that
And
are
yeah,
going to be automatic.
that's the point of contracts. It's one of those things that we want to use to make everyone's life easier.
Thanks. Thank you for answering that. So my next question is about like trade posts. Like, what are they, and can players simply buy what they need from these spots? Like, I don't have this. I just have money, and I'm just gonna go there and buy it.
So the age-old question is, what if I want this material and I don't have it and my neighbors don't have it? Where do I get it? And what's really going to be bad is if you are blocked in progress from something. So this is where trade posts come in. So trade posts offer a variety of different resources. The core resources that you're going to need, like wood and stone, they'll basically always have. But the rarer resources will be completely random. But the point of the trade post is to kind of fill in that gap when you essentially can't find it anywhere else. However, trade posts will not be good value. You will be trading at quite negative rates. So if you take two resources that are roughly equivalent in value, you'd be trading maybe 3 or even 4 to 1 in terms of value. So it is definitely not a good place you're going to get a bargain. But at the same point, if you really need something right now, or you have a huge surplus of some material that you just want to get rid of, trade posts can fill that gap.
Just like exchange offices at the airports, right?
Essentially, but worse.
But worse, yeah. Okay, cool. The auction house in World of Warcraft was my first experience with the marketplace. So my next question is definitely going to be about the marketplace in Civitas and how it's going to be like. Is it going to be like the auction house in World of Warcraft when you put something at the spot and say, "Hey, I'm just going to sell it at this price," and the other person comes and buys it, or can they bid on it?
So it will be done in cities, first of all. So you can't just do it locally. All markets are in cities. So if you don't have a city nearby you, you're going to have to travel a long way to use a marketplace. But it's a dual system. It's a bid system and a sell system. So if you want something, you can go to a marketplace and say, I want to buy this much. I want to buy 500 wood, and then it will show you the people currently selling. And again, it will all stack. So items of the same kind will stack on top of each other. So it will show you all the wood sellers and go, hey, 500 wood would cost you, and it will tell you the price. But if you don't want to pay that, you can instead set a buy order, which is, I want to buy 500 wood, but this is what I'm willing to pay for it. So let's say people are selling at 20 city each, and you say, actually, I want it at 17. You could set up an order for 17 each. And when someone wants to sell it, they will be able to see all the people who are buying. And they can go, oh, actually, you know what? I'm happy to sell at 17. And again, it sells instantly. But again, if they don't want to sell at 17, they can set a sell order. So what happens is there's this natural gap between sell prices and buy prices, which will essentially create the market dynamics. Is the more sell orders there are, the more players will undercut each other. The more buy orders there are, the more the price will rise as the buyers are kind of overbidding each other for it. So there will be quite a margin between these things, and that will help to establish the actual trade value of these items.
It's pretty cool. So, okay, that actually answers my question. But since you mentioned that marketplace is in the city, so does that mean that trades post is actually outside the city?
Yes, trade posts are
Okay.
out in the middle of nowhere.
Okay. So if you're stuck in the middle of nowhere, there's always a place where you can sell, but it's not going to be
Yeah, so trade
preferable.
posts will be kind of randomly distributed around the world, and so you'll always be relatively close to one. The more you go to wildlands, there might be less of them, and there'll be more in the kind of safer areas, but they're not in cities. They're essentially there to fill the gap between cities.
It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. So I have one last question I want to ask you, which is about whales actually. Like, can a player be let's say manipulator, like a market manipulator? Like for example, I own a lot of wood. Can I start creating a monopoly around wood?
No.
No.
I mean, that's the whole point of like logistics, man, is to prevent that. Like, I mean, that would be great for one person. They'd be able to
Yeah.
profit off of that considerably, but it would not be, I mean, monopolies suck.
It's not
The
pretty.
problem with monopolies is all of a sudden when they control everything, they can start influencing it to stack things in their advantage and penalize everybody else. So I think that would disrupt the integrity of the community that we're trying to build here. We want, we want opportunity for everybody, and that means decentralization. I mean, it's decentralization, right? It's the name of the game. So
Yep.
I mean, if someone wanted to try it, they can't just go to one city marketplace. They'd have to go to multiple cities. They'd have to buy out in all of them,
Everything.
and which means they got all the convoys. That they've got all the. I mean, you're welcome to try. And in certain places where maybe there is like a particularly rare resource that there isn't a lot of, maybe someone could, in that kind of instance, could, see a bit of an opportunity, maybe buy out all of it and then ship it long distances to somewhere where they can sell it for more. Potentially, that might be an option. And that's the kind of action we want someone to do, where they see like an opportunity to make something. But that is more of a kind of individual right now opportunity rather than a long-term, I am going to own the wood market. Because if you see that happening in an area and someone trying to, hike the prices up, then that's just a call to action for other players to come in and go, well, actually, I'm then just going to become another woodcutting guy in here, because clearly the prices are so high. It's a great opportunity for me to make money. So the more you try to manipulate a market, the more you're asking for people to come in and
manipulate
start
you back.
stealing your business.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that actually makes sense. Regarding the guy who said like maybe you can buy something very regional and very rare and then ship it and sell it somewhere else, that means like that person needs to be aware of different markets in different cities in different parts of the world. That's a lot of research.
And risk.
And
I mean,
risk,
if it's in the middle of nowhere and you're shipping it halfway, across 10, 15 tiles, there's a risk to that. Maybe you want to take that risk on. Maybe you've got a lot of military to take it on.
Yep.
But that's up to you. And that's the kind of thing we're trying to make here. Is we are not trying to tell you how to play the game. We are trying to make it kind of create a playground for you guys to decide how you want to play the game.
Okay. I guess we're definitely going to experience that. Well, I said this is going to be my last question, but as one last question actually popped up in my head. Well, since I just remembered you talked about bandits, that there are going to be bandits in the land, in different lands, that they're going to attack your convoy. Are these bandits NPCs, or can I, for example, hire some bandits and put it on the road?
NPCs.
Okay.
NPCs, but I like this idea.
Well, I'm not hiring mercenaries and stuff to attack other people.
So piracy and being an asshole to other people, stealing stuff, it may be an option, but at the moment all these kind of events are NPCs at the moment. Though I'm sure David now wants to make pirates and wants to be a pirate.
Right. Put it in my notebook.
That's gonna be fun to be honest. But what if like a bandit attacks me and for example, and defeats me? What happens to the goods that I lose? Are they gonna just sit on the road, or are they gonna be like are you gonna
Bye bye
display
goods. Bye bye goods.
Bye-bye goods?
So
The bandits will take it back to
Yeah.
their camp, and at a later date, you can go and exact revenge on them to get back.
Attack
Yeah,
on
so-
bandits.
yeah, we do want to give you an opportunity to recover it. As
Mhm.
again, as David mentioned there, that there will be systems to handle what happens when you lose. It's not going to be, oh, goodbye, delete everything.
Yeah, it's not going to be everything, right? But
Okay.
In the end, though, what you're talking about there is a situation where you've sent a convoy, and essentially you've either sent no guards or you've sent insufficient guards. Yeah. So that this is definitely something that hopefully shouldn't happen, because if you do have guards and you get attacked, then the guards will defend you. That's the point of you sending guards. But again, if you don't send sufficient guards, then you've got this left out. If it's bandits, then yeah, the bandits are likely to steal it and take it back. If it's wolves or bears, for example, then the convoy would stay where it is. So you would have a potential chance to go and recover it. So you've got you go back to your shipping warehouse, click on your convoy, click the location, send out a convoy,
Get it.
go and pick up your stuff again.
But can other players do it like faster before I do?
Yes, and I say, but what we want to do is err on the side of give the owner a chance.
yeah.
Okay,
Likely it's gonna
cool.
Likely it's going to be a timer. So it's like this you got a half-hour time when only you can send it, but outside of that time, if you wait too long, then it becomes a free-for-all.
Okay, that's just pretty cool. Okay, I'm gonna make sure to send a whole army after it. So,
No, man. As we dig into this, it
Yeah.
seems like a system that is just ripe with opportunities for exploitation.
yep.
But
We don't want this to become a PvP game in that sense. We don't want you to be, backstabbing each other, setting up piracy, and intercepting everything. In the end, the point of logistics is to make communities of people working together to kind of grow together. That would kind of directly undermine it, but it's definitely there are definitely cases where
yeah,
there
there
is
might be a
opportunity
measure of
when
it.
done,
that is tolerable,
measured, but not default.
There is stuff, but not all of it. Okay, so things will happen. Okay, that's pretty cool. Yep. So, is there anything else, guys, you want to add before we wrap this up?
No, I think that we covered it all. Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So, thank you for all the detailed answers, and I thank the community for listening to us. And as always, there is a chance information might change, so no answer is definite. Things might change. And thank you very much for being here today with me, and I appreciate the time and effort.
All right, man. Appreciate you, Rosh, for setting this up. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one.
As always, you can ping us in Discord if you've got questions. I would be happy to talk logistics.
Oh, okay. Careful what you wish for.
Will
All
do.
right.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See ya.